Jesus said that what comes out of your mouth reveals whether you are clean or unclean. He was saying this to a group of people that thought that what you ate made you clean or unclean. And he was saying, actually, the words that you say and the attitudes that you have reveal the state of your heart and whether your heart is healthy and holy or whether your heart is unhealthy and unholy. The King David wrote in the Psalms how a righteous person does not walk in the way of the wicked or stand in the way of sinners or sit in the seat of scoffers in Psalm 1. His son Solomon talked about the importance of guarding your heart, because out of your heart, your whole life comes, your whole life overflows. And Solomon is actually a tragic example of what happens when you don't guard your heart. We're warned repeatedly in the New Testament to be careful about the influence that the world or worldly ideas and worldly values have on us, and to align ourselves with the kingdom of God, not worldly systems and values. That's because these things form us, whether we like it or not, and we have to be intentional about being formed in the image of Jesus. This is the destiny of every Christian, is to become more like Jesus. Romans 8 says that this is our destiny, is to be conformed to the image of God's Son. And I really believe strongly in the power of spiritual formation, but I also believe strongly in the influence of things that deform us or form us into other images that are not the image of Jesus. And one of the kind of ubiquitous and all-pervasive influences in our society that is having a negative impact on many people, including Christians and followers of Jesus, are things called algorithms. Now, algorithms in and of themselves are not bad, but if they are utilized by people that don't have our best interest in mind and don't care about our spiritual development, and they're not invested in us becoming more like Jesus, algorithms are just negative spiritual formation practices and negative formation experiences. So I'm not going to approach this from a computer science standpoint. I'm not qualified to do that. But I understand a little bit about what an algorithm is and how they impact the media that we see, both social media, YouTube, television, Spotify, things like this, anything that streams and is connected to the internet. So when I say algorithm, I mean something very specifically. Again, this is not a math definition. This is not a computer science definition. But when I say algorithm, I'm referring to a process or set of rules designed to produce a specific result. Let me say that again. When I say algorithm, I'm referring to a process or set of rules designed to produce a specific result. If I do A, B, and C, then I will get D. That's essentially a simple algorithm. A recipe is an example of an algorithm. It's not mathematical, but a recipe is like an algorithm. If I take this much of this ingredient, mix it with this ingredient in this order, and then I bake it at this temperature for this amount of time, I will get this result. That's like a really simple example of an algorithm. And we are subject to a horrible recipe that is producing horrible results. Another example of an algorithm would be the instructions that you get anytime you buy furniture from IKEA. It's a system or a process designed to produce a specific result. In fact, there's a website that takes algorithmic formulas and converts them to instructions that look like they came from IKEA. You can find this at idea-instructions.com to see exactly what I'm talking about. But they illustrate algorithms in the style of IKEA furniture directions. So an algorithm is just a process or set of rules designed to produce a specific result. This is morally neutral in my opinion. It can be used for good, it can be used for bad, and it's being used for bad or for evil in a lot of cases. So social media algorithms are really having a negative impact on society. And one of the things I hope to do in this video is help people establish an anti-algorithm, something that's going to disrupt the negative impact of social media algorithms and other influences and systems that are set up to bring profitability to their designers, even at the expense of the users. So, if an algorithm is a process or set of rules designed to produce a specific result, one of the first things we want to look at is what are the results that social media algorithms are trying to produce. And basically, it's engagement and profitability. And those are really two sides of the same coin. Social media companies, cable news companies, network news companies, YouTube, they're businesses. Let's not forget that. They're businesses. They exist for one purpose, to make money. They don't exist for a charitable purpose. They're not nonprofits. They exist to make money. And they make that money by providing a service. And the objective is not to serve us, it's to make money. And that's fine. That's what a business is, and that's okay. They make money by getting us to remain engaged with their platform. So the longer you stare at their platform, the more money they make off of ads. If you use their platform less, they make less money. They're financially invested in getting you to stare at their screen or their platform or their app or their website for as long as possible. They don't care if you miss sleep and are groggy on the way to work. They don't care if you are missing out on time with your family. They don't care if it's making you depressed or filling you with anxiety. They care that your eyes are on the screen because they can give that data to advertisers and make more money. I think it's important for us to understand that they are making money off of us, which means we are the product. They are selling our eyes to advertisers and selling the advertisers' products to us. That's why you don't have to pay to have social media. It's free, but it does cost you. So an algorithm, what it does then is, in order to keep you engaged and in order to maximize profitability, it personalizes content. So if you like this sports team or this musician, or you follow this politician and you engage with their content, the algorithm is going to feed you more of that because they know it's more likely to keep you watching. It's also going to show you content that's kind of shocking because as human beings, for some reason, we are prone to things that shock us and startle us. It's not going to show us things that might bore us. It's not going to show us things we thinks we're going to scroll right by. It's going to personalize what we see. And I think that's part of the hook right there. It is personalized internet. In the early days of the internet, if I wanted to find something that interested me, I had to go searching for it. Now it is delivered to me even if I don't want it. It comes to me through these algorithms because I watched this clip of this game yesterday, or listened to a song from this artist, or listened to a speech from this person, and now it is delivered to me even if I'm not asking for it. So it's personalized internet. And the other thing that it is constant validation. And this speaks to the issue of the validation of emotions. If your internet is personalized to you, it delivers constant validation, and you start thinking, oh, this person thinks exactly how I think. I must be right. This person feels exactly how I feel. It must be right. And you get very little of the opposing viewpoint or just a different viewpoint, even if it's not in opposition. And so you start to think that the whole world sees things the way you see them, and then you're shocked when you meet a real life person that doesn't see things that way, and you think, well, you must not see the same internet I see. And that's the problem. They don't. They don't see the same internet. They see their internet and you see your internet. Not only do they not see the same internet you see, you don't see the same internet they see. You're not seeing the same videos. You're not seeing the same resources. You're not seeing the same reports. So then we go out into the real world and we're shocked by that. And we shouldn't be shocked by that. I think we should be shocked when, wow, everyone in my newsfeed agrees with me. That's not how the real world works. So don't get into these echo chambers and rely on things that are just going to prop up your biases. But we really disrupt that by interacting with real life human beings. But I just want you to understand, like, this constant validation. is actually a problem. And I think that this is actually the fatal flaw of social media, is that it claims to be social, but it's actually personalized. So we call it social media because it's supposed to help us connect, but I think that the results are clear. It hasn't helped us connect. It actually separates us and divides us. It's not social, it's antisocial. I'm not the first person to say that. It's personalized internet. It's not social media, it's personalized media. It's for you, it's not for everybody, because we're all not all seeing the same thing. We're all seeing the stuff we want to see, the stuff we already felt, the stuff we already believed. So I think that's the fatal flaw. And when we wake up to that, we'll start to devalue social media a little bit. And that might force the platforms and the advertisers to clean up their act if they want to stay in business. So, how can we disrupt or mitigate the harmful influence of these algorithms in our lives? So this is really what I want to get to, is how do we develop anti-algorithms? How do we develop things in our lives that are going to disrupt the negative influence of algorithms and bring us into a more human, more healthy, more holy, more biblical way of interacting and operating in the world? So let's get into developing an anti-algorithm. Okay, so the way that we're going to disrupt the algorithms that are fed to us is by really following the same process. If an algorithm is a process or set of rules designed to produce a specific result, I think you don't start with the process, you start with the result. What's the result that we want? So that's the first question we have to ask if we're trying to establish some sort of anti-algorithm to disrupt things, is what result do we want? What is your philosophy of social media? Meaning, why do you use it? Why do you have social media? So here are some examples of what some people's objectives might be. They want to connect with family and friends. For some people, they have family that are spread all over the world, and this is their best way to share pictures of kids and grandkids, or stay in touch, or see people's vacations. And that's great, and that's a good, valid use of social media. So for some people, it might be to connect with family and friends. We're probably the first generation that still knows what all of our friends from high school and elementary school are doing because of social media. Another objective or result might be to sell products. If you're a business or just like a self-employed individual and you need to market your business or sell products, then you can use social media for that. That's a good, valid use, and that's good too. I think the problem is usually when we don't have a philosophy of social media. Like, what are we doing this for? I don't know. And I would say the problem with that is something that's intended to be a tool is now being used for leisure. Social media, this is just my opinion. You can disagree with this if you'd like. I don't think social media should be a leisure activity. I think it should be a tool. And I think we should view social media the way we view email. It's a tool. It's not for fun. It's a tool that we use in order to get stuff done. I don't scroll through my email for entertainment. I don't scroll through my email for hours and hours a day. We all experience spam, which is emails that we weren't looking for being sent to us that we don't want. Well, your social media feed is filled with what would be considered spam if it was an email inbox. So for me, I'm going to view social media as a tool, not a leisure activity, similar to email. Also, for me, social media has to correspond to real life. I don't need to be friends with a bunch of people I'm not friends with in real life. If it's a tool for me to communicate with real human beings that I communicate with on my day-to-day, then that's good. It's not. I don't need it to connect with a bunch of strangers that I otherwise wouldn't be connected to because they're not having an impact in my real life. So if it's another way, if it's like a phone number, like this is how I stay in touch with a person that I have a normal relationship with, I think that's helpful. But social media should correspond to real life. That also means that the consequences of your behavior on social media do translate to real life. You say something on social media, don't be surprised if there's real life consequences. If you post something on social media, understand there will be real world consequences. And then finally, for me, one of my objectives or results that I hope to see is I want to use social media to grow my faith and share my faith. So I have been able to listen to teaching and participate in communities that have grown my faith, and I've also been able to share my faith more broadly by using social media. For me, here's the result that I really want to produce with an anti-algorithm. I want to free myself from worldly influence and become more like Christ. So, in order to free myself from worldly influence, I'm going to have to put some boundaries around my use of social media. And in order to become more like Christ, I'm going to have to intentionally utilize the good parts of social media. This really, for me, boils down to maintaining a balance between holiness and mission. For the sake of holiness, I need to create some separation from worldly media. And by worldly media, I don't mean secular media. I don't mean the radio is worldly, the written word is godly. I don't mean that. What I mean is any media that perpetuates unbiblical and unkingdom worldviews is considered worldly. It doesn't matter if it's internet, written, radio, television. That's not my concern. It's what is the message that's being shared. So I want to create separation there, but for the sake of mission, I want to engage redemptively with social media or all media. So I'm not trying to shut myself off from the world, but I am trying to minimize the influence of the world on me while maximizing my influence in the world for Jesus, if that makes sense. So greater is he that is in me than he that is in the world. This is an influence question. Is the world having a greater influence on you than you are having on the world for Jesus? And that's essentially what I'm trying to, that's the result that I want. So before you set about to develop some processes and rules, the first thing you need to do is set about your result that you hope to see. Once you have your result in mind, it's time to begin to put some rules and some systems and some processes in place. Now, I know rule is a 4-letter word to some people. I think you have to get over that. Rules are not necessarily bad. I know some people can go over the top with rules, but rules, boundaries, practices, processes, whatever you need to call them, a rule of life, these are helpful things that are going to keep us focused and make the most of our time. So if I want to free myself from worldly influence and become more like Jesus, what are some steps, processes, and rules that will produce this result? First, I'm guided by a quote from a poet named William Blake who says, "We become what we behold." So I need to remember that when I'm on the internet, whatever's in front of my eyes, I'm becoming like that, unless I choose not to. We become what we behold. William Blake is really hitting on a principle that John wrote about in 1 John chapter 3. John, speaking of Jesus, says, "We know that when Jesus appears, we will be like him because we will see him just as he is." John's idea of becoming Christ-like was dependent on seeing Jesus the way Jesus is. If I see Jesus as he is, I will become more like what I'm seeing. I will become what I behold. So if I want to free myself from worldly influence, one of the first things I'm going to do is place a limit on my daily use of social media. You can determine what that limit is, but there probably should be a limit. It's going to force you to be quicker and faster with your interactions, and you're going to have to say no at some point. You would probably put a limit. Well, maybe you don't, maybe we don't, but a healthy person probably puts some limits on how many calories they're going to consume in a day, or how many of this they're going to put into their body, or how many of that they're going to put into their body. So it's okay to put some limits on daily use. You don't owe anything to social media companies. Place a limit on daily use. Might also be wise to select which days of the week you will use it. Now, that might be a foreign question to some people. You're saying there's some days I would use it and other days I wouldn't. Well, maybe. I mean, you might just want to pick one day a week where you're not on social media, and kind of maybe if you have a day off that you don't need to be on it. Or it might be the opposite, that I'm only on social media on the weekends and I don't use it on work days or something like that. But just placing limits on things gets you to exercise the muscle of self-control and focus. You might want to limit which devices you use to access social media. So, for instance, none of my mobile devices have any social media apps. My phone does not, my tablet does not. So, if I'm going to use social media, I have to go upstairs to my office and open my computer. That doesn't, so it's very accessible to me, but also I'm not just scrolling through while I'm waiting for my kids because I don't have it on my phone and I don't have it on any mobile devices. I have to go into a specific room. This would be like for those of us that grew up when you had a telephone mounted to the wall and you had to go to a specific place in the house to use the telephone. I have to go to a specific place in my house to use social media. I can't just use it on the road or on the run wherever I want. Also, if we're going to mitigate worldly influences in our lives, we're going to have to learn how to check resources and check sources and qualifications. Just because you see it on the internet does not mean it's true. We're all thinking of someone else that needs to hear that, but we need to hear that. If you hear something on the internet, you really find a second source, please. I mean, Google it if you need to Google it. You're going to have to learn what sources are reliable and what sources aren't. There's so many, I mean, this pops up in my newsfeed all the time. Fake quotes from athletes, from parody accounts. And I just had to start checking, like, did this person really say this? Because it sounds out of character for this individual. Double check things. Find at least a second source that's reliable and reputable. And check your sources. Pretend you're in 10th grade writing a research paper. You would have to find it. Your teacher would assign you X amount of sources, and you couldn't just go find a magazine article out of Mad Magazine as a source. You had to go to real sources, right? So that skill that our teachers are trying to develop in high school and in college, we need that now more than ever because there's so much wrong information. So check your sources and also check the qualifications of the people that you're listening to. Listen, I'm a pastor. There are people who online who are teaching the Bible who would not be qualified to clean the bathroom in some churches, but they're teaching the Bible online. And if they're good at video editing and they have a little charisma, you might think that they're qualified to instruct you in God's word. And it's like, but no local church will put them in leadership, and no local church will follow their leadership, and their family is a mess, and their personal life is a mess, but they look good on camera and they're a little bit charming. Listen, that's a recipe for false teachers to spread their message in the church. So check the qualifications, whether it's a Bible teacher or a political commentator, or would you take plumbing advice from someone online that you find out isn't qualified to do plumbing? Would you take car repair advice or medical advice from someone who has no qualifications and no experience in this area, but they look like a plumber? So specifically, I'm appealing to Christians. Check the qualifications of the people you're listening to. You could check to see if they are licensed and ordained through a denomination or a church. You could check to see where they went to school and what formal education they have. I think those are good. I think the most important thing is find out what church they are part of and see if that church speaks for them. See if that church has accredited them in some way. Like, has that local church made them an elder? Because generally there's an overlap between having to meet the qualifications of an elder and being able to teach the Bible in public settings. That's not always the case, but it's often the case. And so even those who are not elders who teach should live up to a higher standard. If you can't find a local church that vouches for this person, I would not listen to them. Even if they tell you the sky is blue, okay, that's true, but I don't need to get that from you. I can find that from other people. So I would check qualifications. If you want to disrupt the influence, consider a fast or reset of how you use social media. So take a few weeks to reevaluate which platforms and practices work for you. Just 10 days, 30 days, go cold turkey. And then when you come back, maybe you're thinking differently about things. with a fresh mind. We kind of all backed into social media. We eased in, and maybe are suffering a death from a thousand cuts, not realizing how bad things have gotten. So you might need to just hit a refresh and restart in 10 days or 30 days with a new philosophy. Finally, be aware of how content impacts your thoughts and feelings. If you're always depressed after viewing social media, you should take note of that. If you're always angry, you should take note of that and be aware of that. Now, that's how we free ourselves from worldly influence. How do we become more like Christ? Well, if you're going to follow people, which I warn against, but I mean, on social media, that's what it's called. If you're going to observe the content of other people, make sure they're Christ-like. If they're not Christ-like, don't follow them and don't submit yourself to their influence. Because you're going to become like that. We become what we behold. What you see is what you're going to begin to replicate in your own lives. And if you're following unchristlike people, you're going to become unchristlike. If they have an anger problem, soon that anger problem is going to surface in you. If they're kind of snarky and rude, that's eventually going to come across in you. So follow people that are Christ-like. And when I say follow, I'm using it in the social media sense. I mean, we're really just supposed to follow Jesus. So I guess we could take Paul's advice, follow me as I follow Christ. Only to the point in which a person is following Jesus themselves are they worthy for us to give them our attention. Become more like Christ by using social media to share your faith, but not argumentatively, to do it in a way that is winsome. I recently saw a contestant on America's Got Talent who played the keyboard, and he was kind of in a funny way, in a comedic way, was illustrating the difference between white churches and black churches. But what that allowed him to do was to play kind of a quiet, play the keys quietly, and then recite and sing through John 3:16 in kind of a white church way. And then he played in kind of a traditional black church way, and then just sang John 3:16, and everyone was laughing and clapping and cheering as this guy's singing John 3:16 on America's Got Talent. That's such a winsome way to share the gospel. He wasn't arguing at anyone. He wasn't shouting at anyone. People were receiving the message and appreciating it, and it was almost like they had church right there in the auditorium. So use social media to share your faith, but not argumentatively. Find winsome ways to do that. View social media as a place to listen to others. You might want to intentionally engage with people that think differently to learn, not to argue. Ask questions. You almost never can go wrong with your asking questions respectfully. And use social media to remain deeply connected to the people of God. If you see it as yet another way to connect to your church, or yet another way to connect to your brothers and sisters, or yet another way to receive instruction from Scripture, or yet another way to pray with people, that's awesome. So use these opportunities to go deeper in your connection to the people of God, whether it's your church or just believers worldwide. I've been able to connect with believers across the world through social media. It's a great thing. I love what it does for me. So we want to reduce the impact of worldly media in our lives, or free myself from worldly influence and also become more like Christ. Just have a couple final thoughts on this that I want to wrap up with. So here's just one final thought about creating an anti-algorithm for your life that's going to disrupt the negative influence of social media algorithms. A church. A church is an anti-algorithm. Everything that's bad about social media algorithms, a church provides an antidote to. If you're surrounded, let me say this, a diverse church provides an antidote to. If you're surrounded by people that are exactly like you and share all of your opinions, a diverse church is going to challenge you. This is what iron sharpening iron means in Proverbs. It's going to challenge you and sharpen you, and it's going to force you to keep what is central to the Bible central to your life. That is Jesus specifically. Well, here's what I love about personal interactions at church. If you say something stupid, you can tell by the look on the other person's face that you said something stupid. We need that. You don't get that from social media. You can say whatever foolish, ridiculous thing you want, and the screen doesn't look back at you like, are you sure you want to be saying that? These in-person interactions, you develop like warmth and love for people, and you get challenged, and you experience the presence of the Holy Spirit, and you get to serve alongside of people, and you connect with people, and you build actual community, and you experience God's love through interactions with other people, and you share God's love through interactions with other people. I can't think of something that would provide the opposite of an unhealthy social media algorithm better than a diverse local church centered on Jesus that holds the Bible in high regard and loves people and is actively fulfilling the mission of Jesus. So all of the little processes and sets of rules that I explained a few moments ago are, I think, really helpful, and I employ a lot of those in my own life. But man, get off your computer and get around some people. Use your gifts. Stop consuming everyone's content that they're monetizing. Use your gifts. Serve other people. Be uncomfortable. Take a risk. Stop being so safe. Stop hiding. And get out into the real world. You and I were designed for this. We were not designed to isolate ourselves in our homes in front of a screen to hear our own opinions in other people's voices. Plug into a diverse local church. I'm not talking about theologically diverse. I'm talking about socially diverse, ethnically diverse, generationally diverse, politically diverse, but unified on Jesus and unified in Scripture. That's going to disrupt all of the junk that corporations that are making money off of your sickness is bringing into your life. So I just want to encourage you to do that. A diverse local church that's centered on Jesus, teaching the Bible and fulfilling his mission is going to disrupt that. It's going to provide an anti-algorithm for you. And I'm just pleading with you, if you see this, to do that. And thanks for listening. I totally see the irony of using social media to get this message about social media out, and that without social media, I wouldn't be able to do this. Fully aware of that as I prepared this video, but I just think it's necessary, and I hope that it's helpful to you. It's been helpful to me.